Well, it finally happened, didn't it? William Nylander is a Toronto Maple Leaf, as he was 2 hours ago and 2 weeks ago. But now it's official. He's able to play again for the Toronto Maple Leafs. What's up, guys, and welcome to a little bit of a special video. I don't know if I'm going to use my intro for this one or not. If you have seen it, great. If not, well, this is what you're going to see, and this will feel really awkward to leave in, but I'm going to do it anyway. But yeah, William Nylander has signed an extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs for $6.9 million for the next 6 years. Well, technically that is for the next 2 years. This year he makes 10 million to the cap, but it's a weird contract. I'll get into that later. But before anything else, William Nylander being a Maple Leaf is fantastic news for Toronto Maple Leafs. That is great news for the organization. That's great news for the players. That is great news for the fans. You can't argue William Nylander has talent, and you have seen that throughout 3 seasons now, where he has just been fantastic. The shining light of beacon before they got Marner and Matthews was William Nylander. So you have to remember that he was the first of the original three-headed monster, which then became a four-headed monster, then became a three-headed monster, now becomes a four-headed monster. It's hard to follow. But he's back, and they get a really big reinforcements at a really nice time to get it in. Like, he will be able to come in, slot in, but where is going to be a good question, but he's going to slot in probably with Matthews, Hyman. I don't see them ruin that line that's played together for 2 seasons now. I don't see that happening. That begs the question, what happens to the other lines? We have the second line with John Tavares and Marner. No doubt they're gonna be kept together. However, what's gonna happen there? Because you have players who've played really well in that line, like Kapanen. Should he be on that line, or would you have Nylander put in there? Because logically you put him there, but maybe you have to try something else. Because Kapanen has worked really well with a line of Tavares or Marner or Matthews or something like that. He's worked so well in that. But do you slot him Nylander and Marner next to John Tavares? Because that's scary if you do. And then you have the third line, which is usually what I would have called the shutdown line, which was the Kadri Marleau and Brown line, where it's now like, if you put Kapanen down there, that's again scary, and that might actually activate a Nazem Kadri, which makes the Leafs even more scary when they can roll on 3 lines. And you have a fourth line of what I think is Pierre Lindholm, Josh Levo, and Connor Brown. That offense is scary. That offensive 4 lines is 4 lines you can roll pretty well, like pretty much all the time. And that also actually brings me to the question, maybe you don't even slot in Josh Levo. Maybe he sits again, and then you have in Andreas Johnson. Like, you have options. You have so many options. Tyler Ennis is in there as well. Like, there's options now in the forward core, and the Leafs is going to be able to score goals on you no matter who you are. Do I think this makes them the cup contender, the favorite to win the Stanley Cup? No. It makes them closer. I don't think they're the favorites to win the cup. I'm still holding out on the Winnipeg Jets a little bit. I still think they have what it takes. I think Connor Hellebuyck's going to wake up at some point. They are my, at the moment, favorites to win the Stanley Cup. However, you have teams like Tampa, you have teams like Nashville, you have a team that I still think a lot of people a little bit sleeps on, but I don't know why they do because of the bad start, which is the San Jose Sharks. I still feel like that team is going to be good. They just need to wake up at some point, and they have to do it soon, of course, but it's a weak division. I think if they creep into the playoffs, look out for those. Toronto has gotten a good player. However, it did come at a weird contract cost. William Nylander has signed for a contract, which is weird because of the date he signs on. It's not like the normal contract where the salary cap or the cap hit is gonna be the same throughout all his years in the contract. No, this year it's gonna be $10,200,000 to the cap. However, that would be ludicrous for him if he had that for like 5 years. That is ludicrous. However, the next 5 years, he's going to make something that's more sensible. And I still think it's a little bit expensive for Nylander, not going to lie. However, I get what you pay for, and I think it's a good contract for both parties. It's a contract for the next 5 years of 6.9. And I think that works. I think that's a fair trade of it. I think it's a little bit much for Nylander. I would have liked that to be probably nearer what Ehlers has, which I think is 6.7, 6.6, but again, that's nitpicking. At that point, it becomes nitpicky. Nylander got what I think Nylander should get, and he gets a lot of money as compensation for a year where he definitely had a struggled and a case for a lot of money, and a lot of money being thrown around, like where should we go, and a lot of people's opinion, which were something that I thought was really, really interesting to look into. However, it's been signed, it's been done, but let's talk a little bit about what actually transpired beforehand and what actually I've been thinking about all day, kind of in not focusing on making the video, but more so focusing on what the case actually was. So there's a few things to this case. There's two sides, and then there's two back rooms to that side. You have William Nylander's side, and then you have his back room, like his parents, his agents, and so on, so on, so on. There is definitely a back room that's been in William Nylander's ear, and I don't think that has been for the best. I think they saw a look at the Leon Draisaitl contract that Peter Sorelli made a few years ago, and which, let's be honest, that contract is not good. They looked at that. I think they know that a center is going to be paid more. I think they saw that Draisaitl had 70 points, and I think they see that definitely Draisaitl had more leverage. However, they saw that contract and thought, that's what we should get. That is what the contract that I think Nylander should get. Which, okay, you look at that and you think that's a little bit crazy. And then you have the other back room that hears that, which is Carl Dubas, which is with the Toronto Maple Leafs. New GM needs to fit in a lot of guys under tough salary cap, where it's gonna be a little bit difficult to maneuver, which I'm gonna be interested in seeing the next season to see what they do with Marner and Matthews. But they have to get those in to a fit with a John Tavares who's come in. How exactly are you gonna pay $8 million for William Nylander and expect to get Marner under 8? How are you gonna expect to get Matthews under 12 if you give that much? No, you have to give that much, which is a shame for Dubas. So he had to kind of push back, and I might actually think he has been saying like 6.5, 6.2 at some point, like started out the 6 maybe even, like saw the Ehlers contract and said, that's a comparable. Maybe the Pastrnak contract, which people have been saying, but the thing is, Pastrnak is just better than that contract. Yeah, Pastrnak is a lot better than his contract, let's be honest. Pastrnak is an amazing player. He has so much upside to him, and I think he's so underpaid compared to what he does on the ice for the Boston Bruins. However, that was definitely a thing people were trying to compare about. If he can play for that much, why can't Nylander? Well, because he's underpaid. That's why. Nylander wants to be paid what he's worth, which I don't see anything wrong in. I just think he asked for too much. Now, a whole nother range of this debate was also for me, looking at this from a little bit of a both sides perspective. I get why they wanted to be stubborn. I get why they wanted to get it done. However, I think it raises a good debate, because I've seen a lot of things on Twitter, I've seen a lot of things on social media, especially like where people really have gone like, he's just greedy, Nylander could go play for $100 in Europe, he's so greedy that he can't even worship that he's wears shirt, and like worship that he has to play for a few $100 less. And that I think is wrong. That statement I think is wrong. I don't think he's done this out of greed. I'll say this right now. I don't think so. And you can come after me in the comments. I don't think he's done it out of greed. You have to remember, how long do hockey players have to make their money? How long do they have this salary? This is a prime contract that he signs. And if he wanted to sign an 8-1, he would have gone a little over his prime potentially. And that would mean less money in that contract. You have 2 shots at this. 2 shots of making the great money that you need, and then you have a few like smaller contracts that you can get, which is good money, don't get me wrong, it's more money than I probably will ever get. However, it is important to know that these hockey players are probably in some of the worst kind of spotlight that you can be in at some points, because hockey is a dream job, but it has the other side of the coin, which isn't the greatest, because constant exposure. If you make a mistake, people are going to ridicule you all over the Twitter sphere, all over the social media, all over the street if you make mistakes constantly. Look at a player like Patrick Stefan. He has never lived down a mistake he made. And a mistake where the puck bubbles. He doesn't try to roof it. He doesn't try to be fancy. It bubbles on him. He misses an empty net, and it goes the other way to score. They won that game in overtime as well, Dallas. However, he has never been able to live that down. Imagine the pressure that one mistake like that can just change your kind of reputation, can change your entire like view from the world, like or view as a person, because they see the hockey player, they don't see the person. And I think that's wrong to call Nylander greedy for wanting to be paid for what I think he deems reasonable for what he delivers on the ice and in a really harsh environment. And the case also raises something that I kind of came into because it raises a healthy debate in terms of the RFA system that we have right now, the restricted free agents to unrestricted free agents. And there is tweaks I think that should be made to it. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think that a player who is being like kind of locked a little bit by the owners, let's say, or the general manager or the contract negotiations, I think the owners has more leverage than the player, because while nobody wins in a situation like this if the player sits out, you have a situation where a William Nylander potentially would have sit out a year, which would have been bad for Toronto, but also bad for Nylander, because guess what? Next year we'd have the same debate. Do we think that would have changed too much? No, but that's again another year where his career is wasted and Toronto loses another year. It's just, I feel like if you can't negotiate something and you can't get it negotiated within the RFA time limits of like 1 year, I feel like they should turn into a UFA in the next off season. That may be too extreme, because some people also raised the other point that, hey, then the star player, if they are in a non-exposable market or a tanking team without a future like they Ottawa at the moment, they could just sit out a year to play in the KHL, make some money there, and go back and get a better contract, which I see the point in. But I think that it needs tweaking, because the other way you can have players which is just being held onto for reason of bad ownership. You see this as well. I think the value plummeted really quickly on Nylander once the rumor started that he wasn't gonna play. And I think that no matter what status you have, if you sit out a year, if you go into that kind of time, your value plummets, so the team won't trade you, which means that you have to play in Europe, which is fine. However, if that happens multiple times, you might not see that much in its all time. You might dip in form, you might dip in potential. And I feel like it needs some kind of tweak. Maybe 2 years? Like for 2 years where an RFA doesn't work, it's a really, really nonsensical problem that we might not even see. But it did raise that question in my mind. What if this happened? What if this happened? We don't have a rule for it. We don't have that fail-safe. And I think that needs to be at least looked at, at least like thought of. But I don't think it will ever be relevant. I don't hope so. However, I feel like it should be looked at a little bit and maybe tweaked. Like, I'd rather have a rule that kind of helps in the rarest of instances than not have a rule at all. To recap, William Nylander is the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that is good for everyone, especially Toronto. Also, maybe not everyone, because we have teams that is near them in the Atlantic. We have teams that might play them in the playoff. Please don't let him score in the playoff. And it's raised a healthy debate about a really, really weird kind of conversation that I don't think a lot of hockey players had taken a stance to. And lastly, I don't think William Nylander was greedy. I don't think he was in the right in this case, but I don't think he was greedy. And now it's time to get back where it belongs, onto the ice. I can drop this blue shirt, which was the most Toronto Leafs colored I had for the video, and get started watching the Minnesota Wild play the Toronto Maple Leafs in an hour while I try my best to edit this video. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.